Welcome back, everybody. Randy Bueller. That's Paul Rietzel. I don't know where Blightstone Colossus is. I thought it was here. I assume the commentators figured out what I screwed up in that game. I debated. If you go back, I think during sideboarding, I couldn't decide whether I wanted it in my deck or out of my deck. It's obviously you have a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and the game often plays out like combo kill is just better against you than my Blightsteel Colossus, but you have an Arcane Lab. So I'm like, versus Arcane Lab, I can actually just win the game with Blightsteel. Not that I can defend the Tinker. Like, I cast Tinker, you counter it. I can't defend it. So I kept debating on the Blightsteel, and I thought I had ultimately decided to leave it in the deck. So I set up versus that Remora. I tinkered to get the Blightsteel, and then I had enough. I left myself red mana for Pyroblast and Time Walk. So you have to counter two things, or I just win the game. I get Blightsteel, Time Walk. You do get to draw off the Remora each time, but I mean, when the Tinker resolved, I thought I just had it. And I'm looking at my deck, and I'm like, that's not. It should be at the top. These are in alphabetical order. B is that I'm looking. Maybe they're misalphabetized. No, apparently, I misremembered the way I had sideboarded, and so at that point, like, all I can do is get the jar and try to go for it, and then I messed up I miscounted my mana. I wasn't supposed to go for the Ancestral inside the jar hand. I counted a Mox Opal mana that I wasn't going to get because the other Opal was going to go away and it wasn't going to be turned on, and so I thought I had enough mana to bait your counterspell with my Ancestral and then Twister. So I went with the Ancestral, you countered, I went to Twister, and I'm a mana short. So now I'm looking, of course, at Force of Will Time Twister. If I'm a mana short, I should either defend the Ancestral or go for the Twister and defend it by exiling Ancestral. Yeah, I didn't play that well once I figued out the Blightsteel wasn't there. I don't know. I was thoroughly convinced I had the Blightsteel in my deck. Like I thought it would be a bug, but it was not a bug. Went back and watched the tape, actually, while we were getting set up for commentary. And it moves it to sideboard, back to the deck, then to the sideboard, and then stayed there.
Yeah, I don't know if the card is something that you want in the matchup or not. I think it's a pretty horrific matchup for my deck, since we're both just playing, with a blinder between us, and your deck is much better equipped for that. So it's possible you don't want it because you don't need it. You want to just go more streamlined. But that was kind of a unique corner case where I set up Remora. I have a huge mana advantage, Time Walk, so that you don't even give me the redraw of being able to take infinite turns on my turn. So it just happened to be good in that one situation, unfortunately.
Right. Would have been good if it was in the deck.
Yep.
But enough about that match. We've got one match left, and basically everything to play for, right? I'm 0-3, and we are either going to have a clean cut or we're going to have another three-way tie at 2-1, depending on how this match plays out. So let's get down to it. Here we are, the sixth and final match, the conclusion of our round robin. Oliver Chiu is 2-0 with this mentor list. In fact, he is lifetime undefeated in VSL-related action to this point. Eric Froehlich randomly rolled up a Ravager Shops deck and hasn't worked out great for him, but he is 1-1 so far. 2-3 on games, but he's got the match win, and if he wins here, he can create a three-way tie for the group at 2-1. What do you see in these draws, Paul?
So Eric has a classic, great hand. The Ravager Shops deck looks like he won the die roll and is going to keep. He's got disruption. He's got some threats. He's got acceleration, kind of everything that he wants. Would like one more lock piece. Oliver had no colored mana, so he had to take a mulligan. And he's got a pretty good 6 with a lot of mana. And Source of Plowshare is traditionally one of the best cards against Ravager Shops.
All right, looks like Eric is on the play. Always good for the Shops player. No disruption, though. It's just, there's the Thorn. He's got a really good draw, doesn't he?
Right, the question is going to be, does he want to get the Thorn out, or does he start with Foundry Inspector? Traditionally, the Ravager Shops deck wants to get that Thorn out, especially against blue decks that can start to cascade advantages. We've seen Eric make the play of getting the Inspector out before, but that was in sort of a unique situation where he was playing against you and you had a poor draw, and that was revealed by you not killing him. So he goes with the more conservative traditional play of the turn 1 Thorn, which I can't disagree with.
So good against Mentor. Like, those decks are so land light. They have to cantrip into land so often that I like his line as well.
Yeah, Oliver drawing the best card in his deck in the situation, which is Monastery Mentor. So he'll be able to play the Lotus on turn 1 and set up a Mentor for turn.
It's a Thorn, not a Sphere. So if he wants to, he can sack the Lotus for turn 1 Mentor.
Wow. Yeah, so he's certainly gonna do that.
Yeah, I think you pay 1 for Lotus, sack it, get your Mentor down. You don't get to cantrip off of it, but there are no removal spells in the Ravager Shops deck. Now, well, sorry, wait, Ballista can kill it, I guess?
Right.
Right. This is actually the spot where Walking Ballista is kind of insane. And I actually think the fact that Walking Ballista does sometimes get to kill Monastery Mentor is what has, I think, pushed Shops back into Tier 1, or felt like Mentor just had the edge in this matchup 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, I think that if I'm Oliver, though, what are you going to wait for, right? It's more likely that Eric has another lock piece and you never get that Mentor down. If he plays the Mentor and gets it ballisted, that stinks. But if he doesn't play, what is he waiting for?
Next turn he can play the Mentor. It's still only a 3-mana spell. Maybe it goes to 4 mana because of a Sphere. Yeah. But he gets to untap his land. He gets to play another land. He basically gives himself the ability to respond to a Ballista activation with a Swords to Plowshares, get a Prowess trigger.
Here's the thing, though, right? He basically knows to a reasonable degree that Eric's hand is not filled with other Moxen and Lotuses, right? So what does he really think that Ephro has? His hand has to be exactly a combination of useless lands and useless creatures, which it is for him to be able to make that play next turn. I like his play right now. I don't think you can risk him drawing another lock piece like a Tangle Wire or something. Yeah,
I think I agree with you at the end of the day. It's just he would have stuff to do potentially to get around a Ballista next turn. Eric's handful of Guerrilla Warriors, though, I'm not sure is going to get it done.
Well, no, I mean, Oliver's hand is going to be very slow against this Thorn of Amethyst. So,
if you can cast Swords to Plowshares in this matchup, you usually win. Mm-hmm. He gets to kill a creature and make a monk this turn. Next turn, he gets to do it again, almost certainly.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's my biases. I'm always rooting for the non-Shops player, I guess. But, in general, Swords to Plowshares is one of the best cards in the Mentor deck against Shops, if and only if you can cast it.
Right. No question about that. I guess I'm just with Eric having a Thorn in play and Oliver having only just the one Jataxian Probe to draw additional cards. It's going to be difficult for Oliver to have those turns with Gush where you both make a bunch of creatures and they're all big and you deal a bunch of damage and the other player can't get into combat. Eric should be able to kind of fight Oliver.
I agree that it's going to be hard for Oliver to have those turns, but does he need them?
Not unless Eric draws more things like that Hangerback Walker.
Hangerback was a good draw.
Yeah.
Take the Hangerback out of that draw, though, and another Swords to Plowshares, I think, plus the Mentor, I think would have been enough to win.
Yeah.
Hangerback might change things.
Eric needs to draw terrible creatures for the rest of the game, basically. And have Oliver ideally draw lands.
What do you think about Oliver's decision last turn to Swords the Inspector rather than the Ravager?
I'm a little unfamiliar with the way that this matchup plays now that Inspector is in Eric's deck. It's difficult to know what sort of explosiveness untapping with an Inspector in play could create. You could see turns where he ballistas for 3 the next turn or something crazy like that. So I don't have a very strong take on that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, it didn't look crazy to me when he did it, especially since he's got the other plow, which I'm sure in his mind was eventually going to get pointed at the Ravager. But now that there's a Hangerback Walker in play, I feel like he wishes he'd gotten Ravager in retrospect.
Yeah. Yeah, Arcbound Ravager is it's one of those cards. It's like Monastery Mentor before people knew about Mentor. That frequently you leave it in play for a turn, and it seems like it's safe, and then you're like, what happened here? This went so much worse than I thought it could. And then certainly Hangerback Walker is one of the ways in which one of the cards that Oliver was not rooting for Eric to draw. So this attack from Oliver is indicating that he wants to use the plow this turn and not preordain. Or it could be that he's trying to bait Eric into some crazy sacrificing of artifacts. But
I think Oliver would happily trade that monk for any of the creatures. And yeah, like you say, the fact that he's got a plow, if there is a combat, Oliver can swing it with a trick.
Looks like Eric is going to take the 2 or 3.
And Oliver's going to go ahead and commit his plow mid-combat to get the extra point in.
And now, this sequencing makes some sense here, because now with Eric having only 1 card in his hand, the cost reduction aspect of Foundry Inspector is a lot less impactful. So,
yeah, he does point it at the Ravager. The Ravager counters are going to land on Hangerback Walker, of course. Eric did not sacrifice anything as a response. He could, for example, have eaten his Mana Crypt there, but he wants to leave himself 4 mana to work with. Tangle Wire costs 4. Well, 3 with the Inspector.
Some argument to be made for just kind of mashing everyone in here and playing Tangle Wire and hoping that's good enough.
Yeah, I think you have to play stuff pre-combat because you may lose your Foundry Inspector if you attack with it.
Right.
So what, the Wire's a 3, the Thorn is a 2. He cannot play both? Right, Inspector and Thorn just cancel each other out.
If you're Eric, you're thinking here, like, what are the paths that I can go on to win this game, right? Obviously, if Oliver has all lands for the rest of the game, my creatures are just bigger, so that's one of them, but that seems unlikely. Another is that I draw something like Walking Ballista. That's a definite way to win the game. But he has to figure out how he wins the other games, right, where Oliver has a little bit of something. And I think that Ifro is kind of keyed in on exactly the right line here, which is that he needs to be fighting battles on his turn and then making Oliver choose between utilizing his mana for his turn or utilizing his creatures. And now facing a Thorn and a Tangle Wire, it's going to be really difficult for Oliver to have the kind of broken Mentor turns that absolutely put the game away.
Yeah, that Tangle Wire is just great here. Tap 4 things is kind of a beating. Oliver left himself with the ability to preordain. But now, again, Oliver's going to be tapped out when it comes to Eric's turn, so he will not be able to put any kind of prowess triggers into a combat.
Right. So, yeah, terrible draw there for Oliver of Force of Will. And I think that he really wants to draw... He wants to draw another Source of Plowshares, honestly.
Yup. Hangerback Walker's the real problem here.
However, 1, 2, 3, down to 8.
New Mentor. All right, Oliver's going to attack for 3. This is a race. I'm glad I got you. I'm going to defer to you. Somehow a creature combat race broke out in my vintage match, so I don't know what's going on. I'm just going to defer to you.
This Mana Crypt is huge. If Eric loses this Mana Crypt flip, I think that's going to pretty much do it. If he
says damage.
Yeah, so now there's really not a lot of paths available to Eric, because now Oliver can just tap his lands and attack with all of his creatures if Eric were to make an attack. So Eric has to leave his creatures on defense to survive while he has a Mana Crypt in play and a Tangle Wire ticking down. It's just like a whole mess of things that are not going well for him. It looks to me
like... Does this new Hangerback help him at all? He can play a new Hangerback. Does that allow him to attack with 1 creature? I mean, clearly Eric needs 2 attacks to win this, at least. He probably just has to assume he's not going to lose any more Mana Crypt flips.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Eric, I'm going to attack with both my creatures and play the Hangerback Walker. I think this is the
Both?
right way to go about it.
Doesn't both lose to I'll take it?
Yep. No, it loses. It well only if Oliver has a land and a spell, right?
Ah, right. Oh, four monks will get through. Right, right. Yeah, this line looks right. Eric's Hangerback gives him the ability to, or the Mishra for that matter, gives him the ability to chump block the Mentor, take 4 monks, go to 1. Eric's winning line includes then winning a Mana Crypt flip. I think this line would have been right even if he hadn't drawn Hangerback, just because Mistress Factory turns on the same possibility.
God, this game would have been really fascinating if Eric had won that Mana Crypt flip and had that extra life to work with, because Oliver has no way to trigger the prowess on his turn. So
true.
Eric actually had some really strong paths to victory here. Now he's got very small paths to victory.
All right. What if Oliver can't trigger prowess, and it's unlikely that he can, especially through now a second thorn? How many creatures can Oliver attack with? Right, Oliver. There's 2 Mistress Factories that can join Eric's attack next turn. So Eric has a bunch of attackers, and Hangerback throws off a Thopter when it chump blocks the Mentor. I don't know that Oliver can attack. Are you sure Eric's dead?
No,
I feel like if
Eric's not dead by any stretch, but Oliver has the flexibility to kind of just sit back here and say go.
I think he has to say go, because Eric can fire up 5 attackers next turn. And attacking into Hangerback doesn't even help. It's still 5 attackers.
Yeah.
I think Oliver has to play to win via Mana Crypt. Like, if Oliver plays defense, he leaves 5 guys on defense, then Eric is going to have to win 2 Mana Crypt flips to win.
Yeah, I actually miscounted this Tangle Wire. I thought the Tangle Wire was going to be on 2 for some reason, that it was going to tick down during Oliver's upkeep. With the Tangle Wire on 3, it actually does constrain Oliver's options a little more than I had anticipated here. So
I think you tap 3 lands to Tangle Wire, say go with 5 blockers, and then root for Eric to lose a coin flip.
Even if Eric wins that coin flip, though, Oliver's not going to be dead.
Right. He has 5 blockers. So Eric is in the weird spot where he has to figure out, can I attack without dying to the crackback? And then, yeah, I mean, if Oliver just plays defense, he gets at least 2 coin flips on Mana Crypt,
right,
possibly more.
Another option for 1, 2, 3. No, it's not an option. Whoa.
He's going to tap 1 creature and leave himself 1 mana? What does 1 mana do?
No, it allows him to force of will something and then trigger prowess.
There's 2 thorns. Eric played a 2nd thorn. It only allows him to force a will if he draws a land.
So he was hoping to draw a land there.
Sure. I guess. Apparently that's what he was playing for. I'll agree with you, but I don't know if I like those odds.
Wow, so Oliver, with a series of pretty poor draws here, is now in a situation where he is now going to need Eric to lose two more Mana Crypt flips. He really was in a situation where he had a Preordain, a Scry 2, and then a couple draw steps, and he just really needed to find cheap cantrips at some point during this game. I think that turn where Eric successfully identified that he had to pretend like Oliver was never going to do that. And now
wow,
he's shoving. Yeah.
This doesn't work.
Well, he has to win 1 Mana Crypt.
Oh, it wins off the coin flip. Okay, sure. This basically says Oliver's entire game comes down to the next Mana Crypt flip.
I think
he does get through some damage. All right, fair enough. This line does seem reasonable. I don't think Oliver was going to win the long game, so he has to play for Eric to lose a flip.
Let the record
Let's find out.
Eric is going to win the flip.
Oh, he wins the flip. And Oliver immediately concedes. He's dead to this crackback. Yeah. Wow. Eric, 2 crucial Mana Crypt flips, and Eric split them. He won 1, he lost the other. Kind of how it should be, right?
Yeah. As I said before, I think the turn I missed a little bit of analysis after that by miscounting that tangle wire, but the turn in which Eric successfully identified that he needed to get on the offensive and attack with his 3-3 hangerback walker and his Foundry Inspector was a critical turn in that game, and he was given the luxury of assuming that Oliver would not be able to impact the board for the rest of the game, since if he could, then Eric couldn't win. Eric made that assumption, played as if Oliver wouldn't be able to impact the board, and then was rewarded. That's good for me, right?
Yes, it is actually. I was just looking at that. You are 2-1 with a 4-2 game win percentage. And the way we break our ties is game win percentage first. So Oliver, because I dealt Oliver 1 game lost, Oliver now has another. So he's 4-2 pending. He's either going to be 4-3. I guess, yeah, you need, if Eric 2-0 sweeps, do you win? Is that how it plays out? Eric's 2-0 sweep would give you the group. 4-2 to Oliver and Eric both being 4-3 on games.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you need, if they split these 2 games, what happens?
Well, Oliver would be 5-3, right? 4-2 is better than 5-3, but I don't know what Eric would be.
If they split the next 2 games, Eric would also be, let's see. Eric would be 4-3, or 4-4, in fact.
Sounds like it's all coming up Rietzel.
Well, if Oliver wins the next 2, he's 3-0.
That sounds bad. That sounds like it's all coming up too.
Well, Oliver controls his own destiny. I think what it means is that Eric does not control his own destiny. I think you now have tiebreaker superiority over both of these guys. So you need Eric. You need Eric to do you a favor here.
As always, I'm rooting for Eric. Unfortunately, the kid has a good draw of this hand. The kid who's younger than preordained, isn't that true?
Wow, what set is preordained from?
No, I'm joking. That would make him 5 years old.
Like, don't do this to me. I mean, like, it's not one of those. He's younger than Brainstorm.
Well, that's a different standard. So, Eric has a very good hand himself. The old double Thorn or Foundry Inspector Thorn actually is even better.
Mm.
Now, does the Foundry Inspector get Force of Will?
No.
Is that a Force
Thorn
of Will?
does. Yeah, Eric's going to lead Foundry Inspector. Oh, wow, this Force of Will would actually be kind of nuts if he does it. Because the only way Eric gets to play a Thorn is if the Inspector resolves.
Right. Although, oh my gosh.
He sees it. I mean,
Guys,
why would...
The VSL is the only place you can come to see 7th picks from Kaladesh get Force of Will. Clearly, Oliver was thinking this through, and I give him credit for kind of even identifying this is the situation he may want to use a Force of Will. His hand is just so good, but it doesn't match up very well against explosive, many spells in a turn type hands from Eric.
Wow, that's a tough spot.
I think also one of the things Oliver's thinking about is he's thinking, if I Force of Will this Foundry Inspector and then I Wasteland this Ancient Tomb, can I constrain Eric on mana this game?
Hmm. Force of Will is going to work out great. Ooh. Speaking of things that are going to work out great. Wow.
I didn't see the scry. He may have known about that Kataki from. No, there's no way. Because he would have just let the Foundry Inspector in if he knew about Kataki.
Yeah.
Horrible, horrible situation for Eric here. He needs a walking ballista yesterday.
Lets the crypt go. Is the crypt going to damage him on the way out?
That's
yes.
offensive. You make 2 mana, you die immediately to Kataki, and then you bolt me on the way out? What kind of friend are you, Mana Crypt?
Man, Ancient Tomb is Eric's only mana. It's not very good at upkeeping things.
Yeah.
I guess you hope to block. It's obviously not going to happen, but.
Oh my god.
Rough. All right, well, one Ancient Tomb can upkeep both 2/1s. So you raise 4-2. Eric's, of course, already down to 11 thanks to the Mana Crypt and the Ancient Tombs. But...
Sequencing this turn's actually pretty interesting. I like leading with Probe. The question is, do you ponder, or is this a float 2 and gush turn? I think, well, solves that problem. Oliver is going to win game 2, going away.
Yep.
If he can successfully figure out to put Mentor into play and gush. He's not the constructed master for nothing, folks.
Yeah, I mean, upkeep him. I don't know what else you're supposed to do if you're Eric.
If all 3 of the sphere resistances in Eric's hands were walking ballistas, he would still lose, but that would have been a much more interesting game.
Well, they would have been walking ballistas on previous turns.
That's true. That's a good point.
They would have worked out better.
Even still, though, I don't know that a bunch of Phyrexian Revokers was going to be effective against Mentor.
Fair. All right, well, one game left in the show. That was game 2. They have split 1-1. If Oliver wins this game, he is 3-0 on the night, wins the group, goes to the winner's group for our next set. If Eric wins, it creates a 3-way tie where you, sir, will have the best tiebreakers. Our first tiebreaker is game win percentage, and your 4-2 would be better than the 5-3, which Oliver would have. And better than the 4-4, which Eric would have.
Well, Eric's hand is very mediocre. Oliver's hand is pretty good. Preordain's going to have to work pretty hard to find some action. You know, these are the sorts of hands that if I was playing shops, I could never mulligan, but I've seen Eric mulligan hands like this before. Just because they just don't have the lock pieces.
How do you feel about that hand now that there's not a workshop off screen?
No, I saw the workshop. It's just he has a 3-2 and a 1-1. That's his game plan. So
he kept it. Does also have a wasteland.
Yeah, I couldn't mulligan this hand. Look, I can't fault him at all. My point was that I've seen Eric mulligan hands like this before.
Sure.
Eric being a much stronger mulliganer than me. So, you know, Oliver's Lotus, I think, is going to have a pretty important impact on this game at some point because the way it looks to me, Oliver's going to want to fire off a Fragmentize on turn 1, which is going to involve his Flooded Strand finding a Tundra, which is going to run into Wasteland. So that Black Lotus is going to become his only source of white mana, which, you know, as we've seen, the white mana is what kind of does a lot of the hard lifting.
That's a good call. Preordain first, though, right?
We're going to preordain first, but
you don't want to shuffle your deck right after you scry something bad to the bottom, so he cracks the fetch land, then preordains.
But I'm looking at that gush now because prior to him drawing gush, this preordain was just a very high pressure preordain. You almost had to bottom anything that wasn't just absolutely mint. Now he has the luxury of taking something like a Swords to Plowshare, since he doesn't need to find more card drawing in action. He has that in the gush. So now he's got a Fragmentize and a Plow and more card draw. And Eric Well, okay, so Eric has a path to victory here, right? It's both Gush and the second white card are going to require Oliver to either find another land or crack his Lotus. So it's going to be interesting to see the way this develops. Really good draw from Eric.
Yep. It's a creature. It turns off his choice of the Lotus or the Sapphire.
I think you just lead Revoker right away and force him to make a decision on this Lotus.
I agree.
Because you don't want to give Oliver the information that he's going to be without white mana. Tough spot. Well, it's in.
Yeah. Chose the Black Lotus.
Well, Randy, we found ourselves quite a game here for the last game of the night. Is Eric going to sacrifice that emerald? Nope.
And here's the Wasteland for the Tundra. All right. What do you plow here if you're Oliver?
Man, this is tough. I think you want to plow the Revoker. All right.
I think he regrets last game where he left that Ravager around long enough to cause problems. So he's kind of changing his mind from last game. I think you could make a case for all three creatures there, honestly. Pretty sure I hit Revoker over Inspector, but Ravager Revoker is tough.
So now, Eric has a very clear path to victory. It just involves Oliver drawing, white cards and blue mana for the rest of the game.
All right. Well, how many things do you eat? Eric's got nothing in his hand, so he's going to eat the Black Lotus. He could also eat the Emerald. I think I would eat the Emerald here.
Yeah,
then plop 3 +1/+1 counters onto something. And that decision's not clear either. Looks like he's going with the Revoker.
Yeah, clearly a great decision there by Eric. I mean, he wants to give Oliver only 2 turns to draw something as opposed to 3. Huge draw for Oliver.
Preordain. White mana?
Any white mana.
Any white manas?
Or Mentor in an island would be fine. Oh, no, the Lotus.
That Lotus is turned off. It's got to be white mana to turn on the Fragmentize, which then hits the Revoker, and here we are. Preordained found Polluted Delta. Tundra turns on Fragmentize. Down goes the 5/4, and the Black Lotus is turned back on again now. Oliver finds himself 14 life against a 3/2 with Force of Will and Gush in his hand.
Yeah. Heck of a...
It was a heck of a draw. I certainly like the kid's chances at this point.
Except there's a 3/3 Hangerback Walker.
Yeah, I mean, do Force of Will or no is an interesting question. Force of Will means he has to pitch his Gush. I think you do, but I'm not sure. Eric's out, too. Perfect information. It's the last card out of Eric's hand. Inspector means 5 mana turns into a 3/3 Hangerback Walker. I think I Force of Will. And then just trust my deck.
I don't know. Gush gets you so deep. So the Foundry Inspector kills him in 5 turns. The Hangerback Walker makes it 3 turns. So you're talking about increasing the clock by 2 turns. Gush gets you so deep in your deck. I don't know. I think I'm letting this in. Like, if we get the Mentor, right?
Sure.
And another card draw spell, this is all just irrelevant. Everything that you do. So.
The Gush is pretty good. I certainly see your point there. He let it in. Another Force of Will. So Force of Will's turned back on again without using the Gush. Yeah, float mana, cross your fingers. Anything white is good here. Oh, there's a good blue card too. 3 more looks at it. Plows, Fragmentize, Mentor. None of the above, but we'll get there next turn. That's probably good enough.
Well, another good draw from Eric, though.
Yeah. Yeah, Oliver takes 6 here.
Yep. And Jace is only one answer.
Right.
So Oliver's in a situation where he needs to find something again, or he's going to be forced to Jace and Ancestral and then try to Ancestral into multiple somethings.
Interesting.
This has been a great game. And honestly, I think very well played by both players. Oh, look at this. We're getting the sweat of not knowing.
Oh, we don't get to see it.
Or the
What
ninth.
did he draw?
Wasteland. A great draw.
It's the Mishra's Factory. Yeah, that is an answer card.
Is he going to be forced to use Black Lotus for 3 white mana to just plow something?
Stony Silence. What does that do?
Nothing. He has to waste Mishra's Factory, minus Jace, crack the Lotus, and plow the Hangerback Walker. Is he going to
right.
Oh my god, he's gambling.
He's going to Ancestral?
And the best part is we don't get to see it.
We don't get to see it.
What?
What did he draw?
He needs multiple somethings. I mean,
yeah, I don't know if I like that Ancestral. It seems like Wasteland plus Fragmentize, or Wasteland plus Plow the Hangerback. Oh, Brainstorm.
And then if he
sack for blue, this isn't going to work. Snapcaster's not bad. Snapcaster trades with Foundry Inspector, but he doesn't have white mana. Tricky. Yeah, I still like Plow the Hangerback.
Yeah, he's going to
waste the factory. You take 3 down to 2 or lose your Jace. But then Jace actually buys you another turn by ticking up.
Wait, we might be missing something here.
What are we missing?
Did he play land already this turn?
No. I don't think so.
Okay.
This is not the Gush turn. Last turn was the Gush turn.
Okay. Then I'm dumbfounded.
I mean, it's hard not to flash back in Ancestral.
Death before Dishonor, I guess.
Now. Okay, so he's going to Flooded Strand and Snapcaster. He's forced to use the Snapcaster main phase because he had to use the floating mana from the Lotus. This does get him his Plow. So we got there, but he had to use his land drop for the white mana. And that means... Oliver wound up in the same spot we did. In fact, he may take 1 less damage. Because he can block Mishra. Or sorry, he can block Foundry Inspector, take Mishra. Next turn, waste Mishra. Wow, is the kids' line better than ours?
Maybe.
I mean, it's like still one guy in this group who's not in the Hall of Fame. He may just win the whole thing. Lodestone Golem, not bad.
Great, no, it's a great draw.
Oh, it's great. I thought he had to tap... I forgot about the Foundry Inspector discounts. It's even better. Yep. Force of Will, sure. Yeah, Eric, attack, puts Oliver to 1. Eric doesn't know about the Wasteland that we know about. Oliver's stable barring top decks. The problem is Oliver's going to wind up at 1, whereas Force of Will is turned off.
Right, but he's going to get to tick up Jace this turn, and then he'll have Jace turned back on.
True. Yeah, there are not haste creatures in Eric's deck. Although Walking Ballista is effectively a haste creature.
Walking Ballista, do you play Stony?
Walking Ballista wins the game through... Oh, he can drop Stony Silence, and then the Walking Ballista doesn't win the game. That's got to be the play.
It turns off half of his mana, though.
Only for now.
Oh, man, what a crazy sequence of events.
You're at 1 against a deck with 4 Walking Ballistas. You have to play Stony Silence here. You can't Force a Will. You're at 1.
Right.
This game's been great.
Oh, so good.
This has been an awesome game of Magic. He's debating whether to turn off his Sapphire, isn't he? What is the Sapphire actually doing for you? Yeah, I like it. No Ballista top decks. Thorn top deck. Yeah, it's not nothing.
No, it's actually quite a good draw when you've shut off all of your opponent's fetch lands for the rest of the game.
True.
Wow, that's... Oh, no, you can't cast it.
Not yet. And you can't play the fetch land either, so... Max punished for the Stony Silence as Eric top decks Thorn and Sphere instead of Ballista.
Oh my god.
Oh my Pearl. Can't activate the fetch land. Can't cast anything through Thorn and Sphere.
Well, he can gush.
He can gush. Probably should. Yep. It's going to cost 2, so he won't have anything floating, but he gets 2 cards. And gets his land drop. Kataki! 3 mana Kataki through a Thorn and a Sphere. That ignores the Thorn, of course.
Through a Thorn, a Sphere, and a Stony Silence, you mean?
Sure. Solarian Academy. Eric's not going to reveal that he has that much mana. All right, what's he flashing back? I know he's still up, still going up.
Picking up, yeah. All right, Ballista.
So the Stony Silence was necessary.
Yep, but so does he need the top deck here?
No, he can flashback frag. Oh, he needs a land, doesn't he? He can't flashback fragmentize.
Needs a land.
Because he doesn't have the mana through the Thorn and the Sphere. This needs to be a non-fetch land.
Looks Flooded Strand to me.
I think that's already. Is that what he just drew? I thought that was already there. Wow, Eric is going to win this. Unbelievable. Oliver stabilized for 6 turns. He played the Stony to shut off Walking Ballista, and then Eric drew Thorn into Sphere, and Oliver never got to cast any more spells. Oliver's hand is so good.
Wow. This was a fantastic game of Vintage to close the night.
It really was.
Oliver's just got those 8 cards in his hand. He's just like crumbling them, saying like, "Why don't these do it?"
I play Stony Silence. Oh, right, Walking Ballista. That's why. It's interesting. Like if you go back and play the game on the other fork, does Oliver win before Eric gets to this draw step?
Very easily.
You think he does? I don't think it's easy. He didn't. He only found the Mentor. I guess he found the Mentor a couple of turns ago, didn't he?
He also has
had a Time Walk,
which he's going to be able to cast twice with Jace.
That's a good point. Yeah. I think not playing the I thought Silence was correct at the time where he did it, but it did not work out, and the other fork would have. You were which way were? I thought you liked not playing Silence.
No, I agreed with Oliver at the time. I wish that I could give myself that credit, but I liked the Stony Silence at the time. It just didn't work out for him.
Wow. All right. So once again, we have an 0-3 and a trio of 2-1 players. Game win percentage says, sorry, Oliver, it's my fault. If I'd had my Blightsteel Colossus and if I'd beaten you in game 2, Paul, then Oliver would have actually won the group. But instead, you swept me 2-0, and your 4-2 game win percentage is better than Oliver's 5-3 and better than Eric's 4-4. Congratulations, Paul.
Thank you very much. It's tiebreakers are not how you want to do it, but there's much more magic to be played to determine the champion this season. So this is just a foothold, to get me started.
It does mean that you're guaranteed at least week 7, because the way the next set of groups work out, there's a winners group. 2 people from the winners group go to the playoffs, and the other 2 people from the winners group go into the wild card round. The wild card, essentially. The middle group, the winner makes the playoffs. Second place goes to the wild card, and then the last 2 are done. The losers group, which currently is me and Rich Shea and a bunch of 2-1s who are going, come on, not like this, not like this. The losers group, one person, whoever ties for last gets relegated. The winner goes to the wild card group. So anyway, point being, by making the winners group, you're guaranteed at least some postseason action, and definitely have a leg up on trying to get back to the playoffs.
Awesome.
Wow. That was a fun night.
That was a fun night.
We got done. Eric threatened to take Athena away for Valentine's Day dinner. Whether we were done or not, but we are in fact done before the deadline that they imposed. Hope all of you guys have enjoyed watching. We'll be back next week. We've got Group C lined up. 4 players ready to make their regular season debut, so you're not going to want to miss that. They're going to get a good look at them. Rachel Agnes gets to make her debut. Webb is back. Bob and David back from a couple of seasons ago. Should certainly be a fun night of Magic.
Yeah, I will not be missing that one. I love the mixture in that one of you have a Hall of Famer, you've got the international poker superstar, you've got Webb, a longtime professional stud and a vintage enthusiast, and then a newcomer who's trying to make a splash, who wrote the book on how to get into the VSL. So we'll see how she does in her regular season debut, as you said.
Should be fun. All right, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.